Welcome back everyone to the Fly Culture Podcast with me, Pete Tigers. This one's a little bit of a special one. It's a mini road trip. I'm heading up country in my van. I'm going to be staying overnight. I'm going to be fishing hard. I'm not going to say where I'm fishing. That doesn't matter. And what I hope to do is capture the essence of my fishing days. I've got a couple of days fishing and what it means to me, how I get on. And I'm hoping to throw in a few fishing tips as well. So we'll see how it all unfolds. This is all going to be done in one take. So if I get something wrong or if I mumble, it's exactly as it's happened on the river. So I make a conscious decision not to re-record what has happened. So that's the idea of this in a As It Happens podcast on the road. I hope you enjoy this one. I've arrived at the river and it's about 9:30. It's chalk stream, as I've mentioned, and as we all know, there's been a lot of rain over the winter and the aquifers are still pretty full and pumping a lot of water out. And I've just walked over a bridge, looked at the main river, and perfectly and eminently fishable. Looks okay. I may have a look there a little bit later, but as I'd come this way, I really wanted to try and catch my first chalk stream trout of the year on a dry fly. So there's a short carrier that runs probably, it's not even a mile long, I wouldn't have thought, 3/4 mile, something like that. And I thought, being a carrier, it's going to be shallower. It's going to be a little bit more easy to bring a fish up, I think. As I said, it's early at the moment. Last week, when I was salmon fishing, I was sitting with Harry actually. He was in the area and came and joined me. We sat down and had lunch together. He was having his lunch break, but I was in between fishing. And we saw some hawthorn fly. So I know it's an important hatch here. No signs of anything yet. As I said, it's early. Looks a lot drier from the weather that we've had at home in Devon, certainly. So it's interesting to see that. I'm going to probably fish, I think probably something like Paul Proctor's all-purpose terrestrial as a good all-rounder. I'm going to look, of course, for rising fish, see if anyone's home on that front, but I think my plan is probably to work the water a little bit, just to get a sense and a feel of everything and see how it goes from there. It's warm already. I think it was 15.5 degrees as I got out the van. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. And it's been a little bit cooler at home in the mornings as well. So I'm sort of thinking about how I'm going to fish, how I'm going to position myself, where I'm going to fish as well, to perhaps put the odds in my favour a little bit more. We'll see what happens. Just see. Yeah, there's a few terrestrial flies around by the looks of it. Certainly not hawthorn, but I think I've put myself in a good spot to start the day and see where it goes from there. Being a smaller stream as well. I fished this, I think, a couple of years ago as a guest, and it's a challenging stream. It is very, very shallow, very, very spooky fish. So I've got to be on my game, see how it works out. I'm sort of, while I'm talking to you, I'm walking down the river and I'm looking at a section now, and it's probably no more than 12 feet across. Still a little bit of water in there as well at the moment, so it will be interesting to see if I can bring somebody up. I still think this is a better bet early on, certainly being in a smaller, shallower stream. I can see the bottom really, really clearly. That obviously plays against me a little bit as well because it is so shallow and so clear. There is nice shade along this river though. That's the really encouraging, nice thing about this, that there's some shade here as well. So I don't have to think about the sun position. It's behind me and the sun is actually aiming upstream. So it's behind me at the moment as well. So I don't think that's going to be an issue anyway. If there is some more open spots, the fish will think, oh, it's a bit bright, I'm not going to rise up in here. So I'm kind of feeling pretty happy about the choice that I've actually made. I've just seen a duck come out. I did see a swan a bit further up as well, which on these small streams is going to be kind of challenging to negotiate. I'll be the gentleman, of course, and probably get out and give it a relatively wide berth. But yeah, the stream is very, very narrow, which means I don't mind fishing the water a little bit more rather than to a rising fish, because I think with them being such a small area, I've got a good chance of hopefully bringing a fish up. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. I'm going to just take my time, see how things play out. But yeah, I'm happy with the choice that I've made so far. At the bottom of the beat here, I'm reminded of the conversation I've recently had on a podcast with Paul Gaskell, and about club water and about fishing the water and following somebody up a river, those sorts of things. And I was reminded also of the podcast I did with Luke on the Usk and the paths into the river, how well they were worn. And so I tried to look at different spots to get in and out the river just to see. But of course, people have thought of that already. But here I'm at the bottom. I've got to go over a stile, over some barbed wire that's all, of course, covered. The area in, I reckon, if anything, one person's been in here. So that's kind of nice as well. There's no grass been trampled. There's not a well-worn path. So perhaps, again, I'm kind of feeling happy with the choices that I've made and where I've started. I've tied my fly on. It is very enclosed in there. And to start off with as well, I thought, as I said, with Paul's all-purpose terrestrial, I thought I'd start with that. I can make changes if I need to, but I'm excited and I'm going to be bumbly and excited. So instead of trying to set something up, I'm looking at reeds around me, relatively high grass, somewhere to put the rod and tie the fly on. I thought, let's be calm about this. Let's think about this a little bit. So I've tied my fly on ahead of getting into the river, which leaves me plenty of room to think about how to get in, scan the water for a bit, and then think about my approach. So just trying to think things through just a little bit more and make life easier for me. And sometimes I think to myself that when I'm fishing and when I'm excited, I rush through everything, or something can go wrong. And if I'm really well prepared before I actually get in, then there's less chance of that happening as well. You know, those sorts of things where you pull the line through and you've missed an eye or something silly like that. So I've done it all nice and slowly, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Just moved about 5 or 10 feet up the river. Flow here is very, very slow, and where I got in was quite deep, so I was almost sort of waist deep. And, you know, if I'm trying to bring a fish up, possibly my chances are not as great, but I've got that marked for next time. So I may even wander down here a little bit later and see if there's anyone rising in there, because I think it's probably got the potential to hold a nice fish. I've seen some small ephemera on the water, and that's encouraging. So some small upwings. I don't know if they're medium olives or not. There's something bigger on the water there as well in front of me that's come down unmolested as well. So don't know if that's a bit of a sign as well. But I'm sort of, working my way along, just some random little casts. It's kind of ironic going from a double-hander where I've been chasing salmon because the rivers have been too big for trout at home to something a bit lighter. And I'm going to talk about the rod a little bit later as well. But what I'm trying to do, because I'm specking the water, I'm trying not to cast. I've got a relatively, I think for the size of the river, about 12, 13 foot leader. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that I don't, I've just seen a granum as well, actually. I want to make sure that I don't throw it too far upstream, because I think if I'm specking the water, there's a good chance I might line a fish by doing that. So I'm trying to keep everything nice and controlled. I'm scanning the water once I've finish my cast just to see if anything's happening. I'm getting some clues happening now as well. So I've seen odd flies. I wouldn't say these are epic hatches by any means, but I'm starting to see some flies appear. Water while I'm standing in it is pretty cool as well. So I've noted that. But yeah, I'm just keeping an eye for any signs of life. It may be that I change that fly in a moment as well. If I want to see something rise really, but I might also, I think the fly's about a 14, I think it is, but I might put something just a tiny bit bigger on, just to say, look, it's worth your while to come and have a look at this. So that's already going through my mind at the moment. The other exciting thing is when I put the fly on, that I didn't need any glasses as well. So that's a great sign for the start of today's fishing as well. So I'm very, very happy about that. You may well have got the sense I was thinking about changing things up a little bit already. Just sitting here thinking about things a little bit, and I saw a fish rise, and I covered it with the all-purpose terrestrial with no joy. So I thought, right, I'll wait a little bit, see if it goes again, which it did, change things up, put a quill emerger on, like a shuttlecock pattern. I really like those. I like the way that it sits in the water, and I think I can, well, this will make you laugh, hook fish better. And I had a fish take pretty much straight away. It was about fish of about 6 inches or so, ate the dry, but sadly came off. But wild fish, they're all wild fish here. There's no stocking goes on whatsoever. So I know anything I catch is a wildie. I've seen another fish rise just a little bit further up as well. So it looks as though the change was a good one. Not quite as positive, but I'll take that rise, and I'm really happy about that. They're not hard on, the fish. They're really not at the moment. You know, it's still only not even 10 o'clock yet. But it's been encouraging to see some fish rise, so I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about calling those changes. And sometimes it's your gut. Your gut's enough to say, yeah, give it a change. And it seems to have worked out okay, so I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see what happens with this next one. The trouble with it being, it's relatively, as I mentioned, deep and slower here. Oh, there's another rise as well there. That you've got to be wary of ripples coming up the river as well. So I'm sort of taking my time and going from there. Because I'm seeing fish rise, it's allowing me to pull a little bit more line off the reel as well, putting a bit of distance between me and the fish, but allow me to flex the rod just a little bit more as well. So I'd been doing, where I started, there was a tree all around me, so it's sort of improvised roll casts and spay casts to get the fly out. But here I've got a tiny bit more room, and that fish, while I've been talking to you, hasn't risen again. So that sort of gives you an idea. They're not sort of really feeding voraciously, but they're there and they're looking upwards. So I think if I can keep my stealth to the maximum and cover these fish, I think I've got a little bit of a chance, certainly early on at these ones. Well, what do you know? Covered it, and straight away. Fish of about 10, 11 inches. Beautiful one, and really, really happy. Really, really happy with that, how that played out. And again, thinking about making changes, thinking about how I'm fishing, I think has helped catch me a fish. One of the things I was thinking about as well is that this is a slow, it looks like an even flow, but it's not, of course. And the bankside and anything that, there's not big rocks or anything in the river here, but it might be weed. There may be other things that are making deviations in the flow. If anything, I can see the main flow is down the centre of the river, which for me makes it nice, easy casting as well. But I'm also thinking about, okay, even if it does look a uniform flow, there's probably going to be drag. So no matter what, when that fly lands, I'm just putting a little bit of slack in the end, just so that that can be pulled out should we have some unnatural drag or micro drag that puts the fish off from taking it. But just a nice little rise to the fish, gave me a good go at it, and thankfully I got it. I've got to apologise to Roger, Eden Made Nets, that I've not oiled or waxed my net, so please feel free to bollock me at any stage. But it's been nice to catch one. It's just 10 now. So just being patient. I barely moved any distance while I've been speaking to you in these last 3 segments. So I've just taken my time. I'm trying to not disturb the water. All the clues have happened in front of me. I've looked at the bugs. I've looked at the rises. I've thought about, right, do I need to make those changes? And I've got lucky. I've seen a fish rise a little bit further up. Again, there's a big gap in between the rises. So patience is definitely paying off for me. And that's what I'm prepared to do. I think as we go up the river a little bit further, that it shallows and gets a little bit quicker. And my gut is, although this is the right place for the rising fish, I might get a nicer bite from a fish in that fast water as well. I've got a 50% hookup rate, so that's fine, and I'm happy. I've caught a fish on a dry fly. That's what I wanted to do this morning, so I'm really, really happy about that. So my day's made anyway, but I'm just watching for any more clues, any more signs. Again, that fish hasn't risen again, so I'm just waiting just a little bit to see if I get a sign and if he gives me a clue that he's still feeding. Saw a couple more fish rise and spent a bit of time on them as well, changing flies up, lengthening my leader a little bit. I think I did all the right things, but I couldn't get them to eat, so I thought, right, okay, I'm in no rush because I've got a couple of days fishing. I don't feel like I've got to sit on them. I'm just going to enjoy everything because I walk up the river. It's changed a little bit now that it is a little bit shallower now. So where I've been wading more waist deep, I'm sort of knee to low thigh. So I'm not seeing so many fish rising here. So what's going through my mind is, do I fish the water? So do I shorten my cast up a little bit now and put on more of a bring 'em up pattern? So that's what's going through my mind at the moment. The other thing I've been thinking about as well is giving yourself a break and saying job well done and on the fish that came off and the fish that I did land. And I notice that as I get older and I'm 10 years into having this big old stroke that I've talked about, that my reactions aren't as quick as they used to be, but I cut myself a little bit of slack. So if a fish doesn't stick, it's okay. I've got him to come up. The reactions, I manage that. So I don't beat myself up about it. And I think we can often do that sometimes. Don't be so tough on yourself if a fish doesn't stick. Don't focus on that one. Enjoy those moments of the fish that did stick and that moment of connection and that release of it as well. So they're things that I'm sort of kind of thinking about at the moment. There's barely a cloud in the sky, but I'm standing in the shade at the moment. The water's not crystal clear. It's got sort of a early season, sort of a very slight tinge to it at the moment. So I kind of love chalk stream fishing because I can spot fish. I think it's going to be problematic. The tree line breaks for a short time a little bit further up in front of me, and I might get the chance to see something. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, what's going through my mind at the moment now is, do I change things up? Do I try and bring the fish up to me rather than me casting the rising fish? That was a really interesting experiment. So I put on a slightly bigger fly. It's a pattern I bought, as you can probably judge by the flies I've been tying on. I don't tie them. I still haven't got around to tying flies. I'm still really not that interested in it. And I bought a bunch of flies from Fully Mill that arrived in the week, and I'm trying them out. And it's a sort of a caddisy pattern with a lime butt on it. And I thought I could try and bring a fish up for it. And like I said, where this tree line has just cleared a little bit, I get a slightly better look at the fish, and I saw a fish turn on it and refuse it. And then the main flow of the river is, the bubble line's really in the centre here, and I flipped a fly in there. I saw a fish look at it and then cast again, put a bit more slack in. The fish came up, just ate it really nicely, and so it kind of worked. So I managed to bring the fish up with a slightly bigger pattern. So that's all played. It's going far too well at the moment, so I'm surprising myself at this, but I'm really, really pleased with it. And yeah, fly seems to work pretty well. I couldn't tell you what it is. If anything, I'd say it was a caddis pattern, but looking from below, it could be anything. It's got nice hackle on it, grizzle hackle, it looks like it, tannish sort of body, but works absolutely fine. And being able to, that's that advantage of the chalk streams, that being able to see the fish in the water and the reaction of the fish. And I think of my river back home where I just don't really get to see that. So it's been thrilling to be able to do that. And that clear water has definitely given me a fish, because I saw somebody who was interested in it. I thought, I'll give him one more cast. If he doesn't eat that one, then I'll change again to something more subtle. But yeah, he just needed a little less drag. I think there must have been a tiny bit of drag in there that he didn't like. Just been reminded of a podcast I did earlier in the year with Mr. Shady. We talked about karma on there. And I've just had one of those situations myself, that just a rod length away from me, I could see a fish of about 6 or 7 inches, and I flipped the fly over it a couple of times, and then I saw it swing to take a nymph. I saw it swing to its other side to take another nymph. And I thought I might just tie on a nymph and see if I can catch it for you. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to leave him. And I watched him dart away into the weed and hide. 2 casts later, flipped up a little bit further, and the fish came up exactly the same size. Came and ate the dry fly. I'm sure there's something in there about karma, but I kind of like those things. Been reflecting a bit, and I took my eye off the ball a little bit, that you just get lost in your thoughts sometimes, and things had slowed down. The sun had come round to the side of the river. Don't know if that had any impact or not, but the fishing slowed for a little bit. Then I saw the odd fish rise, went from the bigger pattern to something a little bit more subtle, the shuttlecock emerger that I've been fishing earlier, and started to pick up some fish. Got to a hatch pool, which is coming up for lunchtime now, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to finish here and then have some lunch and then come back. And I'm trying to figure out whether I stick with the other half of this stream this afternoon, or do I go somewhere else. And it may be, because I'm staying overnight, it may be I fish the beat I had in mind tomorrow morning and have a quick go. I'm due to be meeting up with Warren at some stage for a couple of hours, so it depends where we end up there, but I may stick with this. I'm enjoying it so much. But I got to the tail of the hatch pool, and again I keep talking about this wonderful thing about chalk streams, that you can see the fish, and at the tail here I saw a beautiful fish and stuck with the shuttlecock, and it's got a tiny little bit of holographic red on the butt. It's not the pearl, it's holographic red. Quill body. Flipped over the fish, and I wasn't expecting the fish to take, but it did, which was pretty special, and managed to get it in. I reckon it's a fish of around 14 inches, something like that. Might even be a little bit bigger. I don't weigh fish now, I don't really measure them. I like to think of every fish as beautiful, every fish as special, no matter the size of it. But that's a lovely way to snip your flies off lunchtime. And I thought I'd talk about the rod that I'd been fishing, because it's a real old beauty, and I usually would have fished this stream with one of Warren's glass rods. But when I was getting all my kit together, I saw that was sort of winking to me in the back of the rod store, and I'm sure many of you have got spots with rods that sort of get covered over and forgotten about a little bit. And this is a really special one to me. It's a sage rod, but it's a really, really old one. I think I bought it in the late 90s, it must have been, and light line rods weren't really much of a thing there. And I think probably the distributors, I bought it second hand from John Norris, and I would think probably at the time people felt that river rods were 8.5 foot 4 weights, 8.5 foot 5 weights, 9 foot 5 weights at the time. That was your standard sort of river rod. And you did have those, of course, shorter ones, 7.5 4 weights as well. But this is a sage, and it's called the SPLCA. It's a special one because it's got the reel built into the butt of the rod. And I think Lamson have tried it subsequently, but nobody's really done it since. But this is a beautiful piece of design. It's hugely practical. It works. It came with a line as well at the time, the Quiet Taper, which I've taken off, and I fished it, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that, on the upper section of the Tor with I put a creek line on there, and it works beautifully. And it's a 20 plus year old rod, but it brought it back to life, and it works fabulously well, and it's fished fantastically well today. It's a one weight rod. And I think when they came out at the time, people said, well, these rods won't work, rods won't work in most conditions, or if it's windy, but it's really useful. And when I first lived in Devon, I fished it all the time on the upper section of the Tor, caught a number of fish on it. You know, the fish I've just caught now are 14 odd inch fish, wasn't a problem bringing it in. It bends deep, there's lots of feel in there, you have to think, and that nice slow cast. Yes, some of the techniques have moved on a little bit, but it's eminently usable, and I've loved every second of it. And it's one of those rods that I'm probably going to bring out a little bit more now, and it's too good to sit in a cupboard. You've got to fish with these things, and I'm really, really enjoying fishing with it right now. My thought process makes me laugh at times. I've stood on a bridge on the main river and said to myself, right, okay, if I see a fish rise, I'm going to go and fish the main river. Didn't see one. I was only there probably 5 minutes, something like that. Yeah, of course, now I've walked away, there's probably a chance that the fish has risen, but I've missed that opportunity. But yeah, it's funny. I'm sure you probably do the same, don't you? And make yourself a little promise that if this happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, I'm going to do that. But it just doesn't matter. I think I'm just having such a good time that I'm really not bothered in the slightest about what I do and where I fish. It's been an interesting start to the session. So where I'm standing in the river is probably 9 foot wide, I would think, max. And on my left side, the sun's coming from there. So the right, if I look to my right, that's bathed in bright light. So as a result, the fish, and I spotted it relatively quickly, because I had a fish charge the fly from coming from the left, the shelter of that left bank, to take my fly that was probably a couple of feet out from the bank, came and took that, managed to miss that. But then as I've made a few more steps up, I spooked fish from under the bank. So lesson learned. So I'm trying my best to be more on the right side so that I don't spook those fish. Because on these small streams, what happens is that it's almost, or it can often be like a domino effect, that you spook one and that goes flying up the river and that puts everyone else on alert. So I've moved myself middle to right side and then casting more off my left side. There's a lot of willow trees coming over on the right side, so I'm sort of throwing it up off my left shoulder when I can, and then sort of roll casting it off my left side when there's not so much room. But I'm not seeing so many fish rise in comparison. It may be, as I said, that me walking up there has spooked a fair chunk of it. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. The water is more uniform. I'm about knee deep, but it looks as though it's going to shallow up shortly. I've seen a few fish, but it doesn't look to me like they're playing. I'm not seeing much hatch either, actually, so that may have something to do with it. But I'll keep wandering up, take my time, and see if I can see anyone rise. In the meantime, shorter line, and I'm just sort of speculating in spots. As I said, I've been given a little bit of a clue by just using watercraft and what I've seen to figure out where I think the fish are more likely to sit right now. Decided to make the change up back to that bring 'em up pattern. Caddisy type, whatever. Actually, I've just seen, while I turned the mic on, seen a couple of Granham as well. And I'd moved, as I said, on the previous spot to mid-river. Flipped mid-river because the flow seems to be concentrated there. And I saw a fish come out, have a look, go back again to the left side. I flipped again, nothing. So I thought, right, okay, let's see if it's that right in that shaded area. So flipped in, and fish came up. It was just one of those lovely takes. And sometimes I talked about reactions earlier and my ability to hit fish, but being able to see them makes it so much easier. So you just lift into them. The other thing I was thinking about was that I talked earlier about the one weight rod. And I think people often think about this in the context of its ability to play fish. Now, I've had no issues today, and the fish that I've just put back is probably 10, 11 inches, something like that. Not a problem at all to bring it in. It bends deep as well, so it's great at playing fish. But I think of a line weight more from its ability to deliver the payload. So with a one weight line, how big a dry can I throw on it? Can I throw a nymph on it? I rarely have over the years thrown a nymph on it anyway. It's primarily a dry fly rod. But that's how I tend to look at this, that I'm fishing a one weight rod. It's going to land slightly more delicately on the water, but also has it got the mass in that one weight line to deliver a slightly bigger dry out to the fish. In this case, with that nice line that I've got with it, the creek line, it works really, really well. So I've got no issues and no complaints. And even back when people were talking about light line rods and not fishing them because of wind situations and stuff like that, I've never really had any problems with that. And it's a case of adapting a cast so that you can make it a little bit easier. And I've been doing a little bit of casting tuition again, and have enjoyed talking about these things with students, just to say, how about this, how about that, how do you make that cast if the wind's coming at you, what do you do? And it's just a case of thinking, right, what is the easy cast, how do I make the cast easy? And that's how I tend to think of these situations. Now there's a willow tree comes right across the river here. It's probably 11 foot wide now, but I've seen a rise there. Heaven knows how I'm going to get to it. But what I tend to do is thinking my mind, right, how am I going to make that shot before I've made it? Now he's risen again, and he's upstream of the lowest branch, which I might be able to get a shot in there. I honestly don't know if I can or not. I'm going to give it a really good go, and I'm thinking of those angles. The other thing with a small stream is think about your back cast as well, because people forget about that a little bit, and I position myself so that I think about where am I putting that back cast so that I don't get hung up. So that makes the longevity of my flies substantially longer, but also allows me to make that delivery without having to worry what's behind me, because I've had a good look, so I know. So I'm going to see if I can get this guy under the willow. I think it was more subtle rise. He's gone twice, so I don't know if I've got the right pattern on. I might chuck it once and see what happens and go from there. He's not gone since I last mentioned it, but we'll wait and see. But it's the shaded areas that the fish are rising in now. The only way I could get to that fish was to bow and arrow in there. I walked up a little bit closer, and the branches were just everywhere. I got a bow and arrow shot in there that I was happy with. The trout thought it was okay, followed it downstream, and either decided not to take it or saw my ugly face, which is more likely, and decided it wasn't going to eat it. But it was a moral victory, if nothing else. I thought what I'd do is head on to the main river, and river's bigger here, 25, 30 feet wide, possibly a little bit more than that as well. But I'm still sticking with the same rod. I'm just looking for rising fish. Water's obviously a little bit deeper. In part, it's sort of thigh deep here where I'm standing while I'm recording this. I'm looking for rising fish, and I've had a few. Not big numbers, but I've been looking for them tight against the bank where there's shaded areas, but also where it's tight in on the opposing bank. There's a lovely flow along there that looks lovely and sticky, and I've picked up some fish that have been rising in there. I'm not 100% sure what they've been mopping up. I think it's everything and nothing, but I put on the emerger with the red holo butt, and that seems to be doing the job pretty well. Makes me wonder, the body's black with a little bit of ribbing as well, which makes me think perhaps there may be midges there or something along those sorts of lines. I've just seen another one rise just upstream of me, and my plan is I've got another hour and a half. I've got to go to the campsite and sign in. I'm going to have a sit down, sit in the sun for a bit, but I've really enjoyed this. It's a different sort of, an 8-foot rod on here isn't undergunned. I can cover the fish pretty well, and as I always say with casting tips, that if you want 2 feet further on your cast, step up 2 feet. That's a nice easy way to do it. I'm keeping control of the line. Obviously, because I'm casting a bit further, I'm thinking of that slack, so I'm putting men's in the air and on the water as well to ensure that there's plenty of slack and I'm getting as long a drag-free drift as I possibly can. But it's a different challenge in a different way, and I just wanted to see how the main river was going to fish this afternoon. I thought I'd give it a chance to warm up, and yeah, there's fish rising here. It's not prolific hatching, they're not prolific rises. I've had to be patient, but it's worked out okay. One of the things I've noticed this afternoon is that the river is in a lot of the bright sunshine, and it is a warm day today. Warren's just called me and said it's 26 degrees, so it's pretty warm and it's bright. And I think where I'm fishing, that probably means that the brightness is putting the fish off. Where I've caught them has been in shaded areas, and there is a section where in front of me where the river jinks to the right and then the left, and I'm hopeful something might happen along there, but you never know. I'd been fishing that bigger bring 'em up pattern, and that hadn't really worked as well as I'd hoped. It worked on the smaller stream, and it made me wonder if it is because fish might be slightly more opportunistic. There may not be as much food, there may not be enough room, whereas on the main river, lots more room, lots more food, enough to go round. So I wonder if that's a reason for it as well. It may be that bright sunshine, but the hollow butt, the HOLO butt, seems to have done the job pretty well, in part for me when I've had a shot at fish. So we'll see how this one plays out. One thing to bear in mind as well on these bright days is that fish do not have eyelids. So if you do catch one, and I've been doing it, is making sure that I shield the sun away from the fish, so the sun's not going directly in the fish's eyes. It's a nice thing to do for them because they don't have eyelids, so worth bearing in mind anyway. Probably could have fished later. I probably could have had something to eat and then gone back to the river. But sometimes you feel topped up, you feel energised, and I know when I'm at that place that when I'm talking to myself, when I talk to the fish, when I'm lucky enough to catch one, when I laugh, if I get hung up in a tree. I did amazingly well today. I don't think I got hung up at all. So I'm really pleased about that. But that's what I think fishing does to us on so many levels. Yes, we like to catch fish, but it's that moment to sort of step away and clear your mind and refresh, reset. And as a result, you feel a whole lot better and look at life from a slightly different, slightly better angle. I've cooked some burgers here tonight. I'm at a campsite about 10 minutes away from where I've been fishing. Cooked some burgers. Heard there was a pub about 10-15 minute walk away, so I walked down there, had a glass of wine, came back, and I'm just reflecting on the day. I'm planning tomorrow as well. And my friend Ray, who's been on the podcast and I talk about a lot on this podcast as well, is away doing the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And he's been sending me pictures while he does this pilgrimage. It's a great long walk. And he's been sending me pictures of streams that he's seen, and we're sort of hatching plans perhaps to go back and take some fly rods this time and see if we can catch a few trout. And I told him where I was fishing, and where I've been fishing is where we used to fish together a lot. And so I said, where would you like to fish if you were over right now? And he told me. So my plan for tomorrow is to see if I can catch trout for Ray in a spot that means a lot to him. That's my plan to do that. I've got some bacon. I might do some bacon sandwiches in the morning. I'll see how I get on. I'm in no rush. In the van, I bought one of those screens to put across to black things out, but I didn't take it, and I didn't take it deliberately because I love this time of year where we wake up and things are bright and the light is out. And I found this winter a really long and miserable one. And the sunlight that's come through in spring has been really, really welcome. So I'm enjoying every moment of that. Emma and I have been getting up early in the mornings and enjoying the day. And that's my plan. So I'm hoping that light floods into the van in the morning and I can smile. Perhaps I'll go back to sleep for a little bit and see what I want to do. But that's the plan. The plan's to see if I can catch a few more trout on dries. I think I'll do what I did today and stick with the dry. I wonder as the day goes on, if it's another warm day, if it's going to be tougher as the day goes on and that sun moves across the water. But we'll see. I'm not planning to stay late tomorrow night, so I've got the drive back to Devon. So I'm not going to stay late, but I'm going to see how that one plays out. And just go with the flow, really. I'm in no rush. That's the nice thing when you've got a little bit of time. Sometimes when you're on a day trip, you often feel like you've got to pack so much in. But my pace has been really, really relaxed today. And I think it'll continue on into tomorrow as well. I can go to the river whatever time I like in the morning, but I like to have breakfast, and I'll probably make myself a cup of coffee, find some breakfast somewhere. Like I say, I've got some bacon, so I can fry that if I want to. I've put that, the campsite's got a fridge, so as long as nobody's nicked that. then I'll have some bacon sandwich perhaps to get me going, and then hit the river pretty quickly before perhaps the sun comes up. So the fish certainly to me today seemed as though they rose more readily in the morning, and I think, again, as I've said, that I think that's a function of the sunlight and the brightness more than anything else. But we'll see how this one plays out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what tomorrow brings. Day 2. So I'm walking down the river right now, having a look at where I'm going to fish. Last night, geez, I slept well. I was so tired, and the light came into the van as I hoped, and I snoozed through it as well. So I've had a couple of cups of coffee, I've had a bacon sandwich, I'm ready to attack the trout and give them a go this morning on the main river. I brought out my banister rod. I'm sort of walking down to where I'm going to be fishing, but I brought my banister rod, built it on a CTS blank. They make some very fine blanks down in New Zealand, and it's a 9.5 foot rod. It's a 4-weight line on there, and it works really nicely for me. It's just such a great all-round rod. I can do just about anything I want with it. The reason I brought this is that I think the water's going to be a little bit deeper here, and so if I need the option of a nymph, I'm going to try not to, but if I need the option, it's there. But just looking at the river this morning makes me think I probably want to cover as many bases as I possibly can. Still pretty early. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. I've been here a while. I've been setting up, just taking my time and sort of reflecting a little bit as well. And I drove over here in silence, which is unusual, but it is sometimes how I kind of like it, I have to say. And I was having a conversation with our daughter Charlie not so long ago, and we were describing personalities, and I think we came to the conclusion that I'm an introverted extrovert, because I'm pretty shy. And I think being on my own in situations like this, I love fishing with friends. I really do love fishing with them. But sometimes just being on your own is good for you. Helps you recharge, helps you think. And I'm really enjoying this aspect of it at the moment. I was talking about meeting up with Warren to fish, but he's had this lurgy, and he phoned in yesterday afternoon, A, to see how I was getting on, and B, to tell me that he didn't think he was well enough. So I'm on my own today. I don't know how long I'm going to fish. The sun's behind me at the moment, so I think that's good from a fishing perspective, but they're calling it another hot one, so I don't know how that's going to play out, but I'm just going to go with the flow, see what happens. I've got the upper section of the carrier stream is not a million miles away from here as well, so I may have a look at that this afternoon, depending, but I'm just going to take my time, see what happens. Like I was saying yesterday, it's just really nice sometimes when you're just in no real rush, and I'm in no real rush. I'm just going to enjoy every moment of the fishing. I'll message Ray if I catch a fish on this beat. I think I mentioned last night, this is it's one I fished for the first time many years ago with him, and I'd said to him, well, I'm fishing here, where do you want me to fish? Or where would you fish? So he told me, so I'm going to see if I can catch a fish for him. That's my task for today. I've just stepped into the river now, and I've taken a few moments to see if anything's going on. To my right, there's a bunch of trees which are bringing some really, really nice shade. So that far side, the right side there, I think there's a chance of a fish popping against there. The main flow, I think as a whole, is on the left side. There's sort of some woody debris which is pushing the flow out. There could be a fish sitting there. Nice thing about having the sun behind me is that I should be able to spot some fish as well, but I like that there's some shade here, so I'm happy about that. I'm just taking a few moments to see if there is anything happening, if there's anyone about. I've got that bigger bring 'em up pattern that I fished yesterday, but I'll make a quick change if I do see a fish rise. But actually looking up a little bit further on the right as well, there's a little bit more woody debris, so that's channeling the flow out a little bit from there as well. So you've got those two woody debris bits that are pushing water out, and they meet in the junction in the middle here, pretty much where I'm standing as well. I've seen a granum, just one. Last night, I can't remember if I mentioned on here or not, that I saw a one lone mayfly spinner. I don't know what they do. Oh, I can see some olive, just seen a couple of olive spinners here as well. So I'll be watching there to see if anyone's trying to mop up spinnerful. So these are things that are giving me the clues to think, right, okay, perhaps this should be my approach. Yeah, there's a fair few spinners around here actually. So that's something I need to keep an eye on. I can see some midge as well. So by doing nothing, I've not made a cast yet, but I've got an idea of thinking about my fly selections if I do see a rise. I've not seen one yet, but we'll see. As I said, I'm going to try and make hay while that sun's behind me and go from there. I might spec a few casts along that far right side there. River's about 35 feet across here, but looks pretty good. So part of me thinks something might happen if I'm really lucky, but I might make a few warm-up casts in a few spots and then just slowly work my way up. As I said, I've got my ideas now of what fish might be feeding on if I see a rise, and we'll work from there. I'm off the mark. The pool I spent so long describing to you was pretty deep. It was much deeper than I was expecting. Probably didn't, to me at least, feel right for any dry fly activity. So I specced the pool a bit with the big pattern and then worked up into the next pool. And I'm only about knee shin deep here and have just had a fish about 6 inches, wild brown trout of course, 6 inches long, that I'm really happy about. So Ray, that one's for you, my friend. Been persevering with the dry and brought some fish up, but I've not seen anyone rise, not like yesterday morning. So I'm wondering, the water where I'm fishing is a little bit deeper as well, so I wonder if that's got something to do with it. I did see one fish leap, and I wondered if it was grabbing a spinner that was dancing above the water. So I tried one of those patterns, but didn't have any joy. So it could have been something else. It might be even something on the trout skin that was annoying it, irritating it, and it just let. They do that sometimes. But I think what I'm going to do is switch the longer rod for a shorter one and go back to that carrier stream just as a reference point, really, to see if it's any different there, that the water being a little bit shallower may lend itself to some rising fish that I can target as well. So I've enjoyed trying to bring them up. It's been a really interesting challenge this morning. I really enjoyed it, and I could have thrown a nymph on and it could have worked, but that's not really what I wanted to do. It's not a snobbish thing or anything like that by any means. It's just what I fancied doing and why I came up here. So I'm going to stick with it, but I think possibly a move might be a smarter thing to do. So that's what I'm going to do. I've given this a good couple of hours, been patient, watched, covered water, but as I said, I've been lucky, but it hasn't felt as though the fish have been as keen to rise. Even on the main river yesterday afternoon, now the beat where I was fishing was a bit shallower, so that probably made them more keen to actually rise a little bit. So that might be the reason there. But yeah, I'm going to give this a go and see how I get on. Made the 5, 6, 7, 8 minute walk downstream. It's warm already. I can feel the sweat on my back. But the good thing about this is that the sun's behind me on this smaller stream. Again, reminding you from yesterday, 6, 7, 8 feet across. Big difference between yesterday is lack of shade from trees, so it's more open. So it may be a little bit more challenging. I've got here and I see 2 granum on the water. I don't know, because I'm not here all the time. I don't know if this is the end of the granum hatch. My guess is it probably is, but we'll see. I've got my bring 'em up pattern. I can see the bottom so much more clearly. It's much shallower, so I think a fish may be more inclined to rise, and it may also be more inclined to come up and have a look at the fly that I'm throwing. So I feel more confident. Not that I didn't feel confident on the other place. I think I was probably my stubbornness more than anything else, that I wanted to stick with the dry fly, because that's how Ray and I used to fish that stretch of water as well. So I'm going to stick with it here. I've gone back to my 8'1" weight, so a little bit shorter rod, lighter line, much lighter line, and we'll give this a go. I've sort of herded a swan downstream that has gone right through where I'm fishing, but I think that'll be okay. And I was reminded of a fish, if Richard Miller, if you're listening, that I fished a tiny little stream in Dorset and there were swans everywhere and the fish didn't seem to mind too much. So I'm not as worried about it, but I saw it at the top of where I was going. Oh, I've just seen a rise as well. Just seen a rise. So where the river is protected, the bank that is most protected by the sun, just seen some rings come out there. So that's an encouraging sign already. So that's one more rise than I've seen on the main river. So perhaps I've made the right decision. We'll see how we get on there. You might be on your way to work, you may be at work, you may be on your way home from work, or even on your way to fishing and listening to this. Did I catch it? No. I waited a really, really long time and fish didn't go again. I changed my fly. I went for the emerger. It looked like it was sipping the 2 rises that I saw. So that was the choice that I made. Made a few casts into the spot, but nothing doing. I've not travelled very far at all. I've probably done 60 feet. Gone really, really slowly. Things different from the section I fished yesterday is this is deeper. It's a lot more siltier. So a couple of things in my mind. 1, mayfly because of the silt, and 2, because of the depth, possible size of fish too. So they're things that I've got from it. In fact, it's got too deep for me to get through one of the spots, so I've had to get out and see if I can make a couple of casts from the bank and then find somewhere shallower to get back in, slightly shallower to get back in. But yeah, it was just too deep to get through. But they always say about never working with children and animals, and particularly rising trout. But it's nice that I kind of like sometimes that it doesn't all go to plan and you think perhaps this is my chance. And sometimes it can also set the scene. So I've not got into the river, seen a rising fish, thought, right, game on. And it's not been that. And I've sort of lengthened my leader, thinned down the diameter a little bit, just in case. Those little things that might put the odds in my favour, either psychologically or to a trout as well. So I'm thinking about all those things as I come up through. I'm sort of kind of thinking that this is going to be a hard-earned fish. So if I get one. So, I've caught some earlier this morning and I may go back there this afternoon. I'll see how I feel. I've got plenty of fishing here to play with for the time being, or a little bit anyway. And the river bends round to the left and then straightens up to where it joins, or where it starts from the main river. There's some trees along here as well. So I'm hopeful there might be a little bit more shade. But it may be that I just walk along and look for a rising fish, but we'll see. It may be that I'm spooking the fish as I move up. I'm letting the ripples subside. I'm doing everything as quietly and as slowly as I possibly can. So I think I'm doing my part of the deal, but it's obviously not quite enough at the moment. And there's midges on the water. There are odds and sods of all sorts of stuff at the moment, but midges seem the predominant hatch. I've got an olive on purely as, again, a bring 'em up pattern, really, more than anything else. I think it's a 16, something like that. But I thought that might be worth trying, just to see if I can put something in front of a fish that's not too big and brassy, but makes them think, yeah, actually, I'll have a go at that. So, yeah, just seeing an olive upright hatch as well there and head up. So perhaps I've got it right purely by luck more than anything else, but I'm going to try and find somewhere to get back in and see how I get on. The sun's high in the sky now and it's pretty bright. I'm walking back to the car, but it's been a funny old morning. That I was thinking on the last section I recorded what I was going to say to you, because I was kind of thinking, nothing's going to happen here, and then flipped my fly into the spots. I'd been working the water, I'd not seen any rising fish, so I flipped my fly into a likely looking spot and a trout came up and ate it. Wasn't anything unusual about where it was. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, because there was no cover on the water. It was in a sunny spot, and I thought, probably nothing here. And my mind was miles away. And then, you know how instinct sometimes, isn't it, that muscle memory, whatever it may be, that when a fish takes, you set. That's what I did. And I had a fish of 7, 8 inches, something like that. Worked up, again, equally as quiet. But I was starting to see there was a few more trees, and I think that's the big difference, that little bit more shade. Yeah, found a straightish sort of area with the trees. If I was looking upstream, it was to my right, and saw a fish rise. I covered it, and it was a good fish. Sadly, I didn't set on it. It must have, the only thing I can think is that it followed it downstream, ate at the last moment, and I probably pulled it away from it. That's all I can guess. It was a little dark in there, so I couldn't really see what happened, but I missed that. Went up into the next pool. Changed my flies up a bit as well. Sort of a bushy dry with again, more in a caddis style, but has some red hollow on the butt, and that seemed to work. And there was a sort of a tree stump, and where the water hit that and came round, I cast into there, caught the fish that rose, and then a little bit further up managed to catch another one as well. So it turned out okay. When I think sometimes, I guess what I'm trying to say is keep the faith. Just keep the faith and stick at it no matter what. Because I think sometimes you can talk yourself into conditions and talk yourself into not catching fish. Whereas sometimes if you just grind away, you can make something happen. So I'm pretty happy. I'm going to go back to the van now, have a sit down, might have something to eat, and then decide what I'm going to do this afternoon. It may be, I think about heading back to Devon. I've got a magazine that I've got to deliver to John on Friday. So we've got to make some changes there as well. So I'm starting to think about that a little bit, but it doesn't mean I'm going to not enjoy what's about to come. Just having a little breather on a bench here. Benches are always a good spot in a pool or on a run or wherever. So those, and I always think huts as well. Wherever there's a hut, that's usually a good pool or a good spot. So sitting in the shade for a bit. Fishing this afternoon's been pretty slow. I came and had a look where I was this morning and thought, wow, I might throw on a nymph, and if I spot a fish, I'll cast at it. But the light wasn't quite right enough for me to do that. But I thought it might be fun to have a go, but it's just not right for that. And then a fish rose. I think it was an okay fish, 15, 25 feet away from me. Waited again, waited to see if it would go again, but didn't. So I thought, well, sod it, I'll cover it anyway and see if anything happens. But no, there wasn't any interest at all. I changed flies, I changed leader, length and diameter again to give it a go. and I'm just going to have a slow walk back. I think this is probably going to be it. It's just too hot. It's part of it for me as well. It's always that typical, isn't it? Oh, I should come back tonight at 6 or something like that. But I can't. I've got to go back to Devon. I've got work to do, so I've got to crack on with that. I really enjoyed, though, fishing the way that I have, and I've not done it in an elitist or purist way. I just thought it was a bit of fun to do it, and it's how I used to fish with my buddy Ray here as well. So that's what was really important to me, and lo and behold, I managed to catch some fish as well. I don't know who was more surprised, but there hasn't been a lot going on, and I think it's probably going to be early evening now is going to be the game the next few days while the weather's good. Don't know when I'll be back. It won't be that long, but I'm looking forward to giving it a go. And of course, as I said earlier, I saw that one mayfly spinner, so perhaps it may be mayfly time I get up here. Maybe not. I'm not that worried about it. I just like being on rivers and in rivers and casting away at fish back home in Devon as well. The rivers have dropped back now. They've been pretty high, and I've really enjoyed casting for salmon, and I've really got the bit between my teeth with that and enjoyed every second of it. But it feels, although we're still just hanging on to the last bits of April, that we've still got loads of the season left to look forward to as well. So that's the really cool thing. But it feels like I'm sitting on a summer's day here, 20 odd degrees, and it's lovely. I don't care they're not rising. It doesn't matter that much. And there's some spots I can think, I might speck in there. But it looks to me, and when I walked into tails of pools as well, that fish that sometimes you can flip a dry out and they'll give it a look, or we're just shooting off straight away. And that was a little bit of a clue that the food dial had been switched down a little bit. But I'm going to walk a bit further up the beat, and if nothing happens, then I'm probably going to take my waders off and go home. It's just been a wonderful couple of days. I've enjoyed every second of it, and I hope you've enjoyed this podcast too. What I've tried to do is capture not just the fishing, but hopefully a little bit of information as well, or a thought process. And I'm sure many of you know all this stuff already, but if you don't, I hope it's been of use to you. And it's been fun to be able to share that. I've not done retakes. I've not carefully done this. It's just exactly as it happens. So I'll put this all together. I'm looking forward to listening to it again and putting it together and putting it out for you. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the Fly Culture Podcast. Thanks so much for listening.
The Fly Culture Podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly published magazine owned and run by fly anglers. When it comes to fly fishing, we've got you covered.